I'm Curt Frye. In our previous movie, we built a model to create a schedule for a 12-team league where all teams play each other, both home and away. So each club will have 22 matches. The sample file I'm using contains all of the work that we have done up to this point. It's named Minimum Gap, and you can download it using the link that I provide in the video description below. We have already created a schedule, and what I want to do is create a new version of the schedule where we guarantee that two clubs don't play each other too close together. So if we were to look at this schedule, which we generated using our solver model, it's very likely that we would find two teams that play each other within a couple of weeks. And we want to avoid that so that the schedule remains interesting. So in this movie, we'll see how to do that. I'll continue scrolling over to the right, and I'll point out some information that I've added to this workbook. The first is the club number and the name. So the number corresponds to what we have over here in this schedule. And then the name is to make it human readable. And we'll work with that in later movies. But I'll put the formulas in place now, so we'll have them. Also below, I have the maximum home streak. That is the number of home matches that we want teams to play in a row as a maximum. Same thing for away. And then we also have the minimum match gap. And that's what we're going with in this movie. I have also created a list of all 24 match days and the dates on which they occur. We won't worry about the dates as much. We'll just be focusing on the match day. But again, the dates make the schedule more human readable when we create it. Okay, with all that in place, let's go over to the right. And here, I have an outline where we can put in our fixtures based on match day, match date, and so on. I have slots for 144 of them, so I'll scroll down to show that. And of course, because our clubs will only play a total of 132 matches, we will have some matches here where a club plays itself. And that is an artifact of the schedule generator that we used. And we'll get rid of them when we generate the final schedule a little bit later. So let's continue adding it to the framework over here in column AM, where we have the match day. We will have a total of 6 matches per week. So we know that fixtures 1 through 6 will occur on match day 1, 7 through 12 on match day 2. So I'll create a formula that will put 1 through 6 on match day 1, 7 through 12 on match day 2, and so on. And that formula is equal int, then 2 left parentheses, AL4, which is the fixture number. And I will leave that as a relative reference, so it changes when we copy it down. We'll subtract 1 to make the formula work, then divide by 6, which is the number of matches per week, or matches per match day. And then a right parentheses, and we'll add 1 to the total. Because otherwise, we would get a result where we get 0. For the match day. So I'm adding 1 to get rid of that. Everything looks good, so I'll press enter, and I get a match day 1. Then I'll click AM4, double click the fill handle at the bottom right, and everything has copied down. So 7 is on match day 2, 13 is on match day 3, 19 is on match day 4. So we'll continue on from there. Looks good. We also need to look up the match date, and that will come from this table here. So I'll click in cell AN4 equal. We'll do an X lookup. The value is AM4, then a comma. And we'll look in the fixture dates table. And that's something you would have to know. You could see the name of the table if you were to click inside of it and then look up on the table contextual tab on the ribbon. I'll show you that in a second. So I have that, and then the column will be match day. Right square bracket to close that out, then a comma, and fixture dates. left square bracket, date. Then a right square bracket and a right parentheses. Looks good. There's the match date, and I will copy it down using the same technique I did before by clicking the cell and then double-clicking with the fill handle. And with all those cells selected, I'll go to the Home tab and then click the number format, and I will make it a short date. There we go. And these dates are written using the American system, which I don't really care for, but it is what we're stuck with, at least here in the United States. Now, the nice thing about this setup is that we don't need to do a lookup for the home number and the away number, and those are the numbers of the club. So if I scroll back over to the left, and here is our schedule, I see that in week 1, we have team 5 playing 7 and 4 playing 8. So I'll just write those down so I can remember them. 5v7, 4v8. And that will allow us to verify that the formula I'm about to create will actually put the teams in the proper place. So 5v7, 4v8. I'll scroll back over. And then in cell A04, I'm going to use the wrap rows function to bring in the data from my range over on the left and write it as a set of rows with 2 columns. So I have the home number and the away number. So I will do equal wrap rows. The vector, that is the data source, will be the range that I just looked at, that is the entire schedule, but I'm going to make it into a single column. So that will be a second transformation to call. And the array is R3 colon AC 26 and a comma. Actually, I don't need to have any more arguments, so I just have R3 to AC 26. And if I look over to the left, I can see that the correct data has been identified. So we're there. Now I can type a comma, and the wrap count will be 2. Then a right parentheses and enter. And there are the values. And I can see that the home side for the first week, first match is 5, away is 7, then 4, and then 8. So it looks like the data was copied down correctly. And now we can look up the home and away club names using XLOOKUP functions. So in AQ4, I'll type equal. That'll be an XLOOKUP. And the lookup value will be for the home club, so that will be an AO4. Yep, that's identified. Then a comma. And the lookup array will be club number from the club's table. So I'll type club, or club info is the name. Then a left parentheses, and that will be club number. Then a right square bracket and a comma. And the return array will also be club info, left square bracket, club name. Then right parentheses and enter. And club number 5 is Elkton, and I can see, looking over here, that that is correct. And actually, I promised that I would show you how to look up a table name. So what I've done is I've clicked inside of my table, and then I'll go up to Table Design. And under Properties, all the way on the left, there is the table name box. So that's where you can find it. All right, so I'll go back to Home. And now we can do the same thing for the away club, except now we'll look in AP4. So equal, XLOOKUP, and the lookup value is in AP4. Lookup array is club info, club number, right square bracket, comma, return will again be club info, club name, right square bracket, right parentheses, and enter. There we go. We have Elkton playing Grottos, and number 7 is Grottos. These are all towns near where I grew up, by the way, except that we have Mount Jackson, and then my hometown of Mount Crawford, Virginia, in the U.S. So now I will select cells AQ4 and AR4 and double-click the fill handle at the bottom right corner. And there we have all of the club names. One other calculation I want to make, even though we won't be using it in this week's video, is to identify whether a club has an off week or not. So if a club doesn't appear at all, then obviously they have an off week, but we don't record that. But what we can see is that in match 12 or fixture 12, we have Ivy playing itself. And with the way things are constructed, that means that they will have an off week. So we need to identify those so we can exclude them from the final schedule. So in cell AS4, I'll type equal. And if a team has an off week, that is playing itself, then we will put a number 1 here. Otherwise, we will put a 0. So in AS4, I'll have if A04, A04, not A04. So if the home number equals the away number, so AP4, comma 1, otherwise 0. Right parentheses, and then click that cell, double click the fill handle. So we have Luray playing itself, I missed that one earlier, Ivy playing itself, and then we also have Harrisonburg playing Harrisonburg in fixture 24. So there we go. Okay, we've already done a lot, but the next thing I want to do this week is to identify when the reverse fixture is for a pair of clubs. So for example, we have Elkton playing Grottoes. I would want to know when Grottoes was home and Elkton was away. And again, the goal is to create a schedule where teams don't play each other very close in time. And yes, I could do that by having a pair of teams play in week 1 and then force them to play in, say, week 13. But what I'd rather do is have some variability in the schedule so that if there are certain match dates when a team cannot play at home or cannot play or must play at home and shouldn't play away, that we can build that into the schedule. There's probably an easier way to identify matches, but what I settled on was using a code to represent each matchup and also the reverse. And I can do that using the team numbers. So we have the home number of 5 and the away number 7, but I need to make everything 2-digit numbers because I have teams that have 2 digits, so 10, 11, and 12. And for example here, I have 10 playing 11, and if 1 played 11, and I didn't add a 0 before the 1, I would have no idea if I was looking at 1 at home and 11 away, or 11 at home and 1 playing away. So we need to have 2-digit codes. To create those match codes, I will click in cell AT4, and I will again use an if formula. So I'll do if. Actually, I'll escape and scroll over a bit so that we can see more of the formula on the screen. So AT4 equal if A04, that is the home number, is less than 10, comma, then we will create a text string that has 0 followed by the number. So that will be, in double quotes, the number 0, then double quotes again, then ampersand, and the value in A04. Okay, so because the value in A04 is a 5, this should read as 05. Right, so that is if it's less than 10. If it's not, then it'll just be the value in A04 because it would be 2 digits. Then a right parentheses, and then we do the same thing for the second one, for the away team. So ampersand to concatenate text together, if, then AP4, less than 10, comma, then double quotes 0, ampersand AP4. Otherwise, it will just be the value in cell AP4. And enter. So I have the match code of 0507. And to create the reverse match code, which we will look up later, then I can simply reverse the two parts of the formula. So I'll double click AT4 and then copy the text. So I've pressed Control C, double click in AU4, press Control V, and I'll do it this way. So I'll copy the first part, delete the ampersand at the start, then ampersand and Control V, and enter, and I get 0705. So that works wonderfully. And I will select AT4 and AU4, double click the fill handle, and there we get our dates. So now we can find the time between the match days by calculating the absolute value of the difference. And we're going to find the match day for the reverse match code and then look it up here in the original match code. So I've created a second set of values so I can look up in the original. And yes, we will handle the case when a team plays itself in a moment, but we're going to hold on to that and just create the formula first. So in AV4, I will look up the reverse match day. So that will be equal XLOOKUP, then the value in AU4, which is the reverse match code, and a comma. And we're going to look it up from AT4 to AT147. So that'll be AT4, and I'll press F4 to make an absolute reference, then a colon, then AT147, F4 to make it an absolute reference, then a comma, and then we're going to find the match day from column AM. So those are over here. So that will be AM4, F4 again, then a colon, and AM147. And yes, I am a snooker fan, in case you were wondering why I say 147 the way I do. So there is that, right parentheses, and enter. So the reverse match day, so we have 5 playing 7 on day 1, and we have 7 playing 5 on day 14. So let's scroll down and check that. So here we are on match day 14, and we have 7 at home against 5, so the lookup appears to have worked. I'll scroll back up, click cell AV4, double click, and there are the reverse match days. So now we can find the difference between the two match days. And because we don't know in which order we're going to have the higher number, we will use the absolute value of the difference. So in cell AW4, I'll type equal, and that will be ABS for absolute value. And basically you discard the sign. So 3 minus 4 would be minus 1, but the absolute value would be 1 because you ignore the minus sign. So that would be ABS of AM4, that's the match day, minus AV4, that's the reverse match day, right parentheses and enter, and we get a difference of 13 because we have the reverse match day of 14 and the original match day of 1. But, and I will just copy this down a few rows, when a team plays itself, we get 0. So how do we account for that in the formula? Well, once again, we can use an if-then. So for the absolute value, I will do if AS4. So AS4 would be the same. That is, they have a 1 anytime there's an off week. So if a team is playing itself, we assign it a 1, and we look for it here. So if AS4 equals 1, then a comma, and we'll have a difference of, let's say 20, then a comma. And if it's false, then we do the calculation we did before, and that will be the actual difference. So then enter, We get 13. And then I'll click cell AW4 and double click the fill handle. So we scroll down to the bottom and I will double click again. And there we are. It looks like we have 20 and 20 everywhere we have a club that plays itself. So that's good. Okay, we're almost there. So close. We're almost to the bottom of the last page of my notes. Our goal was to have teams not play each other very close within the schedule. And we can find the minimum of that value by going down to the bottom of the difference column and doing a calculation. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of the column, and I'm in cell AW148. So I'm going to find the minimum from my column. So that will be equal min AW4 colon AW147. And I'm not copying this formula anywhere, so I don't need to worry about making it an absolute reference. Then enter. And the minimum is 6 weeks, so that's actually not too bad. I want the cell to be identified for use in a constraint, so I will make AW148 centered, and I will also change the background color to a light blue. That's what I use to indicate a cell used in a constraint. And then I will also make it in cell AV148 a label, bold-faced, and centered. So there we go. So we currently have a minimum value of 6. Let's see if we can do better by having a minimum value of 7. So I've already added in a constraint cell. I'll go back over to column AF. So we have a minimum match gap of 5. So in cell AF19, I'll change that to 7. So that teams have a larger gap between times that they play home and away. And now we can extend our solver model to include a rule that refers to cell AF19. So I'll go to the Data tab, Solver, and here is the existing model. I will add a constraint, and that will be to make cell, I need to scroll over, and I'm doing this because I don't remember what the cell address was. There we go, AW148, and that should be greater than or equal to the constraint, which is in cell, I believe it was AF19, but I want to check to make sure. Yep, AF19. So I'll click OK. And actually, because I've done all this work, I'm going to save it before I run the model. So I'll click Close. And I will press F12, and I will save it as the file for next week. So that will be match day constraints. Save. Okay. So that looks good. I'll go back up to Solver on the Data tab and then click Solve, and this might take a few minutes, so I will be back when it's done running. All right, it did take a few minutes, but we have a result, and hopefully all constraints have been satisfied. It looks like they have. So I'll click OK, and I'll go up and take a look at the schedule, and this is different from what we had before. We started out with 5 playing 7 and 4 playing 8, so now we have 5 playing 6 and 4 playing 7. And then if I go over and scroll down to AW148, I believe it was, let's see what the minimum is. And the minimum is 7. So we were able to create a schedule that has teams playing each other no less than 7 match days apart. And that is our goal. So if that's something you want to build in to your specific bit of scheduling, then you can absolutely do that. You might also want to add a maximum. So for example, here we have teams that are playing each other 21 match days apart. If you're okay with that, then fine. If you would prefer that they play closer together while maintaining a minimum gap, then you could add that rule as well. I know there was a lot in this movie, but this is the kind of thing that you need to think about when you're creating schedules. I hope you enjoyed the solution as I created it, and if you did, please like the video and subscribe to my channel.